of Ghana, Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Saki Tokono. And we are taking advantage of the GBA's special program with the lawyers all over here to take some inspiration from her on the occasion of Mother's Day. So let's begin by hearing from the GBA.
Hello everybody. I think it's indeed a pleasure to be here under all of this greenery with the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, Justice Gertrude. Today, the Greater Accra Regional Bar presents a forum for young lawyers to seek inspiration from the mother of our profession, to ask her questions about what it means to be the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Now, I always say that one of the best ways of getting a sense of somebody's heart is what they do in their guarded and unguarded moments. When we invited Her Ladyship to the Greater Accra Regional Bar cocktail last Christmas, I found it so moving that when she came, we introduced her. She asked, "Is my daughter around? Where is she? Is she here somewhere?" And I said to myself, at that point, it was not about being Chief Justice, even though that was why she had been invited. It was about her daughter. And I said that for somebody whose heart is so amazing, for her to be thinking about her daughter even at that time, we know that this is the kind of mother of the profession that we want. So we're really excited to be here. We are looking forward to listening to you, having an intimate conversation with you. And we know that we'll leave you inspired, more buoyed up to do the great things that we know that we can do in the profession. So again, thank you, Her Ladyship, for this special opportunity. Thank you.
Just a couple of weeks ago,
motives. Some of them really just there to do their work. And you have to navigate all the different personalities, all the different postures. And so if you don't come to the bench with rules, you can hardly get your work done. And so really, being a judge is about being strict, or a judge on the bench is about being strict. Strict with managing time, managing process, managing the different submissions, and managing the courtroom.
Right. What is the significance of Mother's Day to you?
I think that we have all these: Justice Day, Friends Day, Women's Day, Father's Day, because we want to celebrate particular context of humanity and human society. And you cannot celebrate humanity without celebrating motherhood, because that's the first point of calling for any human being. And being a mother myself, a grandmother myself, I thoroughly enjoy all the different greetings and all the different stuff you get from everybody. So when I got the call that you wanted to have a by the fireside of Mother's Day, I even thought it was from the Women's Forum.
Okay.
I didn't realize that it was from the bar generally, but it's a time that is useful for all of us to appreciate, and a context that is useful.
So how much has your mother and other mothers impacted your journey, which has culminated so beautifully in the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana?
Oh wow. My mom was a baker, and she did all sorts of things when I was growing up. My mom embodies work. She's alive. She's still very much alive. And this morning she wanted croissants. I mean, this is a fancy old lady, and she reminded me to add stuff for pancake. So this is a lady who is very much at home with her family life, with work, with everything she did. I think that my mom has been a great inspiration or a mentor for me. Even though she didn't wear a suit to go out, she wasn't an office worker. I never saw her as an office worker. But my mom has made great impact in my life.
Right. There are many women in the country and perhaps beyond who, upon the announcement that you will be the Chief Justice, have come to follow you and admire the manner in which you are running the administration of justice. There are many young girls, ladies, women. What for you would you say they need to look up to or do to be able to get over all the hurdles in this male-dominated society?
I think first you must be at home with yourself. Right. You know, when I think of integrity, I don't think only about telling the truth audibly, but I think about being truthful with yourself. And that's something that can be a bit bothersome. People are anxious around others. They are not sure. They take their affirmation from their environment. I think that every person, and especially women, because there are just so many diverse thoughts about what a woman should be. If you have gone through school, you have become a lawyer, then get at home with the fact that you are a lawyer when you leave home. And at home, you are a lawyer in the context that you are preparing to go out to go and work. So at home, your wardrobe should reflect a readiness to go to work and not be late.
Right.
You know, you should have your jackets in one corner, your shirts in one corner, your bibs in one corner, and that's as much lawyering as you can do at home. But I think that people should get true to themselves. You know, you can't embark on a journey and still be asking questions and be looking behind you. Am I fit to be here? Should I have been here? You are here, and no one can take it away from you. So you should approach your work with that appreciation.
Right. There are those who are asking, we are told about the special things that women can bring onto leadership. You came into leadership of the judiciary, and within a very short time, in excess of a dozen practice directions, administrative guidelines, all seeking to fast-track the wheels of justice. That's unprecedented. What informs it?
You know, all I have done in my time in the law is practice. Even though I worked as the external solicitor for Tema Municipal Assembly, I worked for the Institute of Construction, Institute of Engineers, Institute of Architects. I've worked for many organizations and bodies. I worked as their external lawyer. And then I've always been in active practice. I started life with my legal practice with FIDA, and then also Fuga & Co. I worked with Fuga & Co. for 10 years before I set up a law firm with my good friend Akwa Samson, Sozo Law Consult. And so I've been in practice. And then after law practice, I came to the bench. So I have known the pain of coming to court and not getting work done. I have known the pain of inefficient court staff. I have known the pain of processes that leave either a lawyer or a party confused. And then I've also been very active in judicial reform since I joined the bench. And so there were many things that I was involved in these reform initiatives.
Right.
And therefore, in becoming Chief Justice, all that was left was for me to implement those things that were already in the pipeline.
Some would say, why don't you approach it slowly and gradually?
Have you seen the English White Book?
Yes, please.
How thick is it?
Very thick.
It's very thick?
Volumes.
In volumes? Yes. Hundreds and about 1,000 pages for one volume.
Right.
I think any efficient legal system, and it must provide manuals for the citizenry, must provide manuals and guides for the non-legal staff, must provide directions for the legal stakeholders, and the constituencies are too many, and the work is too much to think about being slow. And thankfully, I didn't do this by myself. Right. You know, I think on the day I launched the leading justice strategies, I think I tried as much as possible to acknowledge the number of people who have helped me. There's been so much goodwill, and people are anxious to get stuff done.
Right.
And so it's leadership. One of the skills of a leader is mobilization.
Right.
That's one thing I have learned. And so I mobilized. And we have about 10 more to release very soon.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll keep releasing them until we've closed every gap.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You have about 10 more of these practice guidelines and administrative guidelines to issue. And you have also invited the generality of the Ghanaian populace to share in your vision. Another unprecedented, another first. What informed that?
Once again, I think I said that on that day, that we all know Chapter 11 of the Constitution starts with justice emanates from the people of Ghana. The law is determined by the people of Ghana.
Right.
Whether it's even customary law. Customary law emanates from communities. Statutory law emanates from parliament. That's the people's representatives. Even rules of court. Rules of court would come from the Rules of Court Committee, but it would go back to the ages. There is no law that is shaped by the legal community by itself. And so in that sense, when you are the chief administrator of the judiciary, which is an arm of government, that's overlooking work, the administration of justice for the entire nation, you must bear in mind that everybody has to work with you. That's my view.
So whilst you are rolling out these rules, guidelines, all for the purposes of improving the speed and also quality justice, you are introducing the shift system, which many applaud and a few are not too pleased because they don't want to go to court in the afternoons and in the evenings. Why do you add that to the bundle of rules?
I'll tell you the reason behind the shift system. I thought I had explained it, but I will repeat it. You know, that what case comes to what court is determined by geography. So how many cases are filed in Amasaman depends on the locality. So what I discovered as soon as I came into office, I set up a quality assurance unit. And what we did was look at the places that had the highest backlogs and try to understand what was happening there. And we discovered that there were certain places that had a very high number of cases. In a court like Adenta, high court, one judge had as many as 500 cases. Another judge had as many as 600 cases. Now you'll find in a place like Mampong, the High Court judge had 65 cases to deal with. Ashama Circuit Court, the poor judge had 1,000 cases. Now, when you have 1,000 cases to deal with, where do you start from? I can imagine that when he comes to work in the morning, he doesn't even know where to start from. That's when the adjournments just fly, right? Okay, so the question was, how do you lessen the load of those who have too many? And that's how I came up with this initiative, that judges who don't have too much on their hands should go and assist their brothers and sisters who have too much on their hands. But then we don't have too many courtrooms. So it's the same courtroom that has to be used. And since a person can just do so much, if the morning judge or if the regular judge rarely works from about 8:30, by 2, they should be getting tired. Then they can move out and somebody fresh comes in and comes to help. And I'm looking out for those caseloads coming down to something like 100. Once they get to about 100, and then I know my work is done and we can stop the shift. So it's not going to be a permanent feature of every location. It's going to be a feature of every location that's overstretched. When we notice that the numbers have gone too high somewhere, it's either maybe something is impairing the efficiency of the judge, or the caseload is too high, and then we go in there and help.
Okay, so it's on a needs basis and it's not permanent.
It's not permanent
so
for locations.
Rotate.
It's likely to. In fact, there are lots of courts still that need help. Takwa, for instance, has so many cases. There are many courts that need help. Sunyani, shout out to the people in Sunyani. I'm sure they are ready to beat me. They need more judges. They need more judges. So there are many courts that have just too much to deal with. And we have to find short to medium term solutions for that. And you can't just go gather the files and take it to Accra, to somebody whose hands are free. It has to be dealt with, because that's the law. The law requires that cases are filed in accordance with territories, with localities. So you have to go sort it out where it is.
It may be early in the day yet, but as a pivotal part of your leading justice vision, are you already evaluating, assessing to be able to tell if this is helping to bring the caseload down, making people feel happy because efficiency is improving in those places where the cases are just clogging?
As I said, we have a quality assurance unit now. It's headed by a High Court judge. And that judge and her team, as well as a performance and standards monitoring committee for the judiciary, which was set up even by Justice Enini Yeboah, even before I came into office, is headed by no less a person than Justice Puaman of the Supreme Court. So there's a consistency of monitoring. Yeah.
We're still here on The Law. It's your weekly legal clinic, and it is your help law. It is your legal light. We have the exclusive privilege of sitting out here with Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, under the able leadership of the Ghana Bar Association, with young lawyers having an interaction. And I confess to you, she's asking a question for many other lady lawyers.
I can imagine. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I remember being pregnant and walking around the courts. I had last 2 of my children as a practitioner. But fortunately for me, blessedly for me, I was very healthy during pregnancy, so I didn't have any problem. Now, if you're a lady lawyer and what I would tell you is, if you're having issues with your pregnancy, drop your dockets, drop the practice, and pay attention to that very important thing going on with you at that time, being pregnant, have the baby, because you really can't mess around with that part of your life as well. You want to, that's why you are there, right? And one of the things I used to do anytime I went on maternity leave is hand my briefs over to another lawyer and not worry about it. This is what I'm talking about in relation to integrity, living in the moment. If you need a year of work, take a year of work. Don't harass yourself to sometimes I see people laboring to remain at work, and I was like that. I don't think that it was helpful, so this is to share my experience with you. I don't think it helps the children. So I would say that when you decide to have a family, look at your circumstances, look at the kind of support you have, and have a common sense approach. Because it's only for a few years. The work will still be here waiting for you. You don't stop being a lawyer just because you went off to have a family.
So that must be a question from your own experience, using the courts as a visually impaired person. All right.
You know, that's why you came to assist us with the e-justice development. You know, we are moving on to phase 2, and we are looking at all angles of how we can give better access to justice. So in our workshops, we invited him and other persons with other challenges so that they could give us an input to how we can do this better. And so in that sense, I think you've answered your question. It's important. We can't go on without you. And you must have access to justice, both as a citizen and also as a lawyer. I would think that when it comes to your work in courts, no one can control the material you bring and how you bring it. And so that's your responsibility. But when it comes to us on the bench, all we need is that your processes are filed, and what we need is that you are heard. So if the challenge comes from sight, that's not too tough. But when it comes from being unable to speak, then we have to fight. We have to move on a notch. So, in fact, listening to you right now, it has occurred to me that we have to start thinking about those who cannot speak and yet have to be part of the community. So traditionally, the judiciary, I think since I started working in reforms, we've always thought about who's getting left out. And you notice that the new courts that have been built, all the 100 courts that have been joined to the system, all of them have ramps for those who cannot walk easily. All of them have ramps for wheelchair-bound people. I think even the Supreme Court building, there was a gentleman who took us on. When I joined the Judicial Council, he had been writing, and he said, if we don't hurry up and give access, he will sue us. So we've given access. We've created the access. The question was the technical way to get it done, because the building is an old building, but now it's been done.
Yes.
It's a diversity of roles. I think that after about a month at the job, I sat back and I said, you know, because I'm always thinking of structure. I only function in structure. So I asked myself, so what's the structure of this job? And I sort of put it in a quadrangle, which is you have your part as a judge. You have to keep sitting as a judge. And then your part as an administrator. Then your part as a diplomat. You know, there's a lot of diplomacy involved. You are the face of the judiciary. Mm-hmm. You are invited to all sorts of functions. And then there's also the part of a leader. Mm-hmm. Because you must have a vision for moving the institution forward. And so at any time, you are sort of moving in and out of all those different roles. Mm. I think today I functioned in all of them. And it's not as if you do one on Monday and one on Tuesday. Mm. In 3 hours, you could flow between different roles.
Respectfully, if I may remind you, she, like all of us, can imagine the enormity of the work. And so she's asking the most interesting thing being the CJ.
I find all the different parts intriguing. I still find my work as a judge intriguing. Every case is different, you know, and having to think about the best way. It can be tiring because it's a role that demands a lot of deep thinking all the time, and that part, you know, thinking can be tiring, and so I don't know what is most interesting, but in all, it's a very interesting job.
So we all know that we have an idea that it is a very demanding job, because she just told us at this time of the day that she has gone through all the various roles even before this interaction. Now, we are looking at you from the speed at which you have begun, and
you keep using the word speed.
Yes. Okay. And we are asking, so how does your vision look like in the next 5 years?
And I must say thank you to everyone. Thank you to my colleague judges. Thank you to the bar. Thank you to the donor community. Thank you to everyone, because it's been a lot of support. I think that the most expensive part of the work seems to me to be technology. Just today, I've had to come to terms with a budget that apparently we need 3 times as much to be able to put certain kinds of technology in the district courts. You know, blithely, all I was interested in is, please give me that and give me that and give me that. Make sure we can get this done. And when the cost came back, when the cost came back, it was so much. And the institution that was going to give us the money then has to review how much they can give us. And if they can't give us beyond that, what had been agreed, then we have to review. So what would the judiciary look like? God helping me, everybody helping me, and me getting money to do all the work. I think that I am quite sure that most of your hearings will be done virtually.
Oh, great.
You will be in your chambers to take at least applications. That should be in the next year, virtually everywhere. We should be taking applications virtually. To take applications virtually, we need facilities that are soundproof, not altogether soundproof, but are protected from sound and too much human traffic. So, and courtrooms are not designed like that. And so we are having to find facilities in different court complexes for all of that. So we will be taking a lot virtually. Much of our communication will be done SMS, email, etc.
Right.
E-filing, e-service, e-case distribution, e-dockets, a lot of that depends very much on the national infrastructure. You see? So as you are planning e-filing, you must remember those who do not have access.
Right.
So we have to have what we call, what was designed as what SB is. I think it's Service Bureau something. That's it, Service Bureau Agency or something like that. Much like a comm center.
Okay.
So if you come to the law court complex,
Yeah.
there's a system down there. So we have to sort of transport that system around the country, and in order to have efficient e-filing processes for everybody,
Okay.
because not everybody acts by a lawyer. E-service, we need email addresses for everybody. So we begin with those who have, and see how many we can compel to have email addresses, because you may be able to upload certain documents, or you may be able to send certain documents by WhatsApp, and that's not good enough,
Right.
because WhatsApp can be tampered with. You need a system that can stand the test of authentication, validation, security, and that doesn't come easy. And email is about the best up till now, because you can't tamper with email. The trail exists. So with the requisite technologies, I'm hoping hearing done, e-filing done, e-service done, e-case distribution is about the easiest. Even though after we started it, I discovered that people could break into it. And so we had to recall the system and build it with better security.
Okay.
And then there's e-hearings.
I can see the joy on the faces of my colleagues sitting in the audience once they heard that next year they're going to be able to sit in the comfort of their offices.
Not everybody, but hopefully as many as we can
All right.
get that
All
facility
right.
for.
But do we have clear timelines when we are going to have to enjoy this?
If it depended on only me, I could give you clear timelines.
Okay.
But I've been in reforms enough to know that you can plan, you can start, and then you can meet it. That's a part of human living.
Right.
But when the willpower is there and the goodwill is there, I think you can move fast. So I'm hoping that by, we've been doing virtual hearings during vacations.
Yes.
And now we've taken it just out of vacations. There are many places that we're doing it as the normal part of court work. Let's say, no, I won't make a promise.
All right. There are many lawyers and litigants and court users who are watching us at this very moment, and I can imagine their joy hearing that there will be messages, alerts to them. If a court is not sitting, you don't have to spend time, drive all the way to the court to be told that the court is not sitting. Yes. And you will have the opportunity of a virtual hearing. Will that apply to every case?
It cannot be for every case. So of course we have to keep going until much is done that way. Until much is done that way.
Okay.
It cannot be for every case.
And on this note, a personal bit. The virtual hearings, I was out of the country, but I couldn't participate, and I wanted to participate, meaning I had to ensure that my junior who was handling my brief could do that work. Are we looking at a point where I could be anywhere and participate?
Absolutely. I still haven't been convinced by why persons outside the jurisdiction cannot participate.
Okay.
I won't tell you the reasons I was given, but I don't think I'm quite convinced, because what's the value? So we have to move beyond it being available to only those who are in the jurisdiction.
All right. And now, before I come back to you for your next set of questions, and I know you are itching to ask your questions, I'd like to ask this on the back of your leading justice vision. You announced that, of course, people have said over time, and the Afrobarometer survey have shown that there is some lack of trust, certain deficit, not only in the judiciary, it must be said, but in certain state institutions, and the judiciary was affected. Shall we have an idea what exactly it is that you are doing about this situation?
The corruption question is a national question. It's a national conversation. It's a cultural conversation. I mean, I think that a lot of what we term as corruption comes from the way we relate, in the sense that somebody goes into a place, asks, how do you get this done? The public official says, this is how it's done. And the person thinks, let me give you a gift. So it's just some of these social practices. And then also there's the rent-seeking behavior of persons who have discovered that if they exploit their positions, they can make income. How do you stop that? You know, so I can only beg, quote unquote, citizens to also take a stand. They know they don't like it, they shouldn't do it.
All right.
Then there are other aspects of alleged mistrust of the judiciary. When I went for my vetting to the Supreme Court, I used an expression, judicial predators. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But in my time from the High Court as a trial judge, up to even the Court of Appeal, I discovered that parties could actually tell each other, I've gone to see the judge. And they don't even know the judge. They've never seen the judge. Or this person did this for me. And it's not true. You know, so a lot of the conversations really are part of the tools. I think some of it is part of the warfare. You know, on the warfare devices. And I recall very much a family member coming to me and saying that they had been told that a party had come to see me, and so the other side had discovered that that person was my family member. And I said, see me, where? When? And this person was just bragging. And it's not an isolated incident. I could go on and on, you know. So it's not as if the practice doesn't exist. I'm not pretending that it doesn't. But what I'm saying is that a lot of the conversations are not premised on facts. Even case management can get people carrying on about why case management is being done. You understand me? We carry, these situations can happen. And so I think that all I can do, or what I ought to do, is any situation, any circumstance that lends itself to abuse, I should try as much as possible to dismantle that situation. And that's what I'll try to do.
All right.
And I'll do my best to do. And when you try to dismantle it, you get some whining on the side, and then I'll ignore that.
And like someone else will say, you'll encounter principalities.
Territorial spirits.
That's right. You are here on The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. This is your weekly legal clinic. And we have the exclusive privilege of having a conversation with Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, on the occasion of Mother's Day. And we will take a quick break. When we return, we'll take another round of questions as we get ready to wrap up. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is The Law. It's your legal lights. It is your help law. And we are having a conversation with Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Araba Esaba Saki Tokono. Yes, so any questions?
My predecessor, and I think even before him, but I suspect that the launching was done by Justice Enini Boa. And he launched the Judicial Service Press Corps. And I had a very interesting time engaging them. So I relaunched it and I met them and I said, at intervals, I'll give you data. I'll give you all the records from the courts so you know which courts are inundated, how cases are going. And on my first interaction with them, after spending about an hour telling them about what's going on in the courts, somebody asked a question pertaining to something political. And all that the journalists were interested in was that answer. I was so disappointed, but I will not give up. I will continue to engage the Judicial Service Press Corps with records, and hopefully journalists will be interested in data from the courts, reporting that, so that the public can follow the work going on. Briefings that we give to the media about the state of work. That is about all that one can do. And then of course also, as we engage more and more transparent models such as technology, hopefully, and then and increase speed and efficiency, I think that people will feel less wary about coming to court. People do trust that they will get their day in court. I think what they are disappointed about is the speed. And you also know that the speed is often hampered by how intricate the legal process is. So when there are missteps in procedure, there are missteps in the standard of evidence, the level of proof, the quality of evidence, and there are missteps in failing to respond to a particular facet of the legality of the issue before you. The citizenry lose cases. The bar also has a big part to play in this. The weaker the quality of work from the bar, the weaker the process is, and the heavier the burden the citizen has to carry. It's very disappointing for us in the judiciary when a lawyer doesn't pay quality attention to pleadings, to time, to factors of legality, and then a case is lost. It's very disappointing for us, but we can't voice it out. Sometimes we say it in our judgments. We try to chide lawyers in our judgment. And then maybe because they have access to the media, they may make presentations, or they have access, voices. They may make presentations that, oh, maybe somebody was compromised, but they know they did a bad job. They did a bad job.
Right.
So the problem comes from different angles. And the trust has to be built from responding as chair of General Legal Council, responding as chair of the Judicial Council, responding as head of the judiciary. When petitions are written, I try to respond as early as I can. If there are consistent complaints about a particular court, I try to move the case out of that court to another judge, you know, and trying to do everything I can to
and I
allay the fears, allay the fears of court users.
Right. And part of that, you had also mentioned that because there is misinterpretation of judgments, decisions, and also unavailability readily of these decisions, you are going to make sure that this will be uploaded as quickly as possible, and then there will be some sort of an opportunity to simplify for the purposes of the public. In what form will that take?
I agree with you. You know, an idea that has come up is, for instance, in complex decisions, for judges to do maybe 5 points summaries of their judgments.
Okay.
But I must say, I haven't put it out to them because you need to consult. In everything you do, you need to consult. And I'm still consulting on that. But we have the e-judgment site up. We are working now on looking at our different websites and how to use them effectively, especially websites that bring the judgments out quickly. But I must confess that when you sit as a trial judge, you are alone. You give your judgment, and in fact, invariably, the trial judge reads out the entire judgment on the day he gives the judgment. The Court of Appeal invariably reads out the entire judgment. The Supreme Court, you've got, if you have a constitutional matter, you've got 7 people dotting all the I's and crossing the T's. Nobody knows how tedious it can be, you know. So it's a work in progress.
Thank you. Legacy issues.
I don't even know whether it's the most important initiative I'd like to speak to. It should be the most important outcome. I think that if when you file an appeal, when you file an application, it's heard and determined within 7 days. Not from the time you filed, but from the time it's heard. If it's determined within 7 days, I would have achieved what my heart wants. If a trial is disposed of in less than 1 year, in under 8 months, I would be extremely happy. If an appeal, an interlocutory appeal is disposed of within a month from the time it's scheduled for hearing, I would be extremely happy. And a final appeal, let's say 2 months. But let me say this also. If you were practicing in the Court of Appeal in the Supreme Court, you would have noticed a certain change, which is that, and I know people have grumbled about it, but it's been, for those who have been beneficiaries, I would appreciate feedback. You know, prior to my coming into office, a case would be fixed by the registrar, and you would come, the other side has just been served, they haven't had enough time to file a process, they haven't filed their process, this one hasn't filed their process, and you could keep going and coming. One of the first things I did was to say that don't give anyone a date until the record is ready for hearing. You see? So somebody comes to file a process. It must be served on the other side. The other side must be given the time required. The other side must file their answer. When they file their answer, and then a hearing notice then can be served on everybody, and you appear for hearing. So you'll discover that these days, hardly would you come to the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal and go away without working. Because a process was filed which was invalid. In fact, now the registrars who are judges are doing the counting. If you notice, if you filed in the court, if you worked in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal, because of the time limits, if you are given 21 days to file a process, and you file it on the 22nd day, that process is invalid, and it will be struck out. And after it's struck out, you have to go for leave to file a valid one. Now, if you file out of time, the registrar will call you and say, I've counted the days and your process is invalid. Do you want to withdraw it, or do you want the court to strike it out with costs? You understand me? So we would go through all these initial nightmares before the case is fixed for hearing. And I'm looking forward to, now that I've seen how well it's working, I'm looking forward to transporting it to the high courts, the trial courts. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of registrars who have to be oriented. And how much help do they have to go through the process? So of course, all court clerks, recorders, secretaries have to come on board. They have to go through all the dockets, make sure that every process has been validly served. And you have to look at the proof of service.
We'll take the very final questioning. Right, you had a question, your hand up too, so just ask your question.
You know, on the day I launched the Leading Justice, I confessed that if you look at our 7,000 and more staff, hardly any of them is a lawyer. And yet, our work must pass the test of legality. And in fact, a lot of the inefficiency comes from the fact that the person assisting the judge doesn't quite appreciate the import of doing something an hour late or a day late.
Right.
When we started e-justice, the issue was when is a process deemed to be filed? Because you know, sometimes you would file it, but paying for it, it getting uploaded, it getting into the system, would all happen at different times. So when is the process filed? Because that time makes all the difference if you are filing an interlocutory appeal. When you have a measured time, you know, time is so much of essence in law. But the way we behave, nobody would believe this except us, you know. So one of the initiatives I began immediately was to call the Judicial Training Institute, sit with the board and say, we need to begin to train every staff in paralegal studies. Fortunately for me, the General Legal Counsel had actually started considering that before I came into office. So it was quite easy. And now we have the curriculum for interpreters, for registrars, for court clerks, for registrars, court clerks, interpreters, and ushers, cashiers, and cashiers. We have the curriculum. And then we went into orientation on delivering online, training online, because 7,000 people, you have to find a way of training them. So we are still in the work of that development, and it's really going on. Of natural justice, a bailiff fails to prove service, and he doesn't know that that failure means the case just can't be heard. He has no notion of audi alteram partem rule. You know, he applied for the work as a bailiff. I mean, what's he supposed to know about audi alteram partem? So that is the initiative. The how we bringing everybody up in legality, and then there's also the guides and all of that for even court users. We are planning and working on bench books for registrars. We are working on guides for, let's say, juvenile court, divorce matters. We're working on guides, a handbook for jurors, mediators, all of that. We're working on them. Hopefully, with all of these different initiatives, we should be able to get some solutions. We can only do so much. On mentoring, sometimes I I find it, I think that sometimes we misunderstand the whole concept of mentoring. We think it has to be someone that we have to be so close to, attached to. I think I've been mentored by many people who don't even know I exist. Which is that you locate somebody you admire, you see how they work, and you watch them. So I've read books, I've read material from particular persons that I think have something to say, and somebody like Nene Amegache. I think today, if he watches this program, today will be the first time he'll hear that he's my mentor as a protege. But then, you know, I worked with Fuga and Co. So I would say Mr. Willie Fuga was a mentor, or is a mentor of mine. He's a man I hold very dear. I watched him and how he managed his affairs. Very few of you know him, I'm sure. He's a very quiet, restrained gentleman. But when you work with him, you see, he's orderly, he's disciplined. And then, of course, Chief Justice Wood, Chief Justice Aqua, Chief Justice Sofa Kufu, all the Chief Justices I've worked under. Yeah.
Right. And my lady, on this note, there are many young lawyers here, many out there who are watching us, law students even, and those who are also aspiring to become lawyers, particularly the girls who are looking up to you. What would you say to them?
I started by saying that be true to yourself.
Right.
If you want to be a lawyer, be ready to be a lawyer, which means you are a learner. Our profession is about studying. You can't spend much of your energies away from studying and expect to be a good lawyer. Don't mess with people if you're not ready to serve them. And don't feel intimidated by anyone. You have a right to be here. You were born. You've gone through it, you know. Sometimes some us it's a man's world. You'll be surprised. I don't notice anybody's maleness or femaleness. Maybe because I grew up with brothers. They are just, men are just human beings, and women are just human beings. We are human beings. You have a right to be here. Get on with it.
Right. What do you do to relax?
Watch TV. Watch Samson. It's true. I watch you. I listen to you. I watch you. I watch movies. And hang around with my family.
Your ladyship, all of us here
and
together.
Go to church.
Right. All of us here together with our audience out there, we want to say a very happy Mother's Day to you, and keep inspiring all of us to do what will bring this country to where it deserves. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you too.
Right.